for part 2. Welcome to the My Side of the Mountain, Sam Gribley, Summer of Sam, Summer with Sam. And I don't know about that other one, but welcome back. And Twig, welcome back to you, and thank you for, again, agreeing to come spend some time with us and sharing your experiences. Today, for part 2, we're going to look at Sam's relationship with nature and how he used nature and was part of his life from everything. I mean, one of the things that I kept laughing at when I would be reading was his the rabbit underwear.
Yeah.
The rabbit underwear.
It sounds like he only had one pair for the whole winter.
Yeah, one pair of underwear. I mean, I think might be. I wonder how that would feel. So I would always put myself in that thing. I wanted to know what that rabbit underwear would feel like. So, but I'm going to turn it over to Twig. She's going to share a PowerPoint with us, and then I'm going to share some of the things that the folks that are part of the group have done during the past week as part of their experience with My Side of the Mountain. Go ahead, Twig.
Hi. So hello, everybody. Thanks for the people who came back and new people. I'm not going to review really what we did last week, but if you have any questions, just let me know if I don't cover something so that it makes sense. And let me see if I can start sharing this. Ooh. What do I do? This is my daughter, Katie. There. Can you see that? My Side of the Mountain? Yep. Okay. You can tell I'm a real techie. Katie's been a big help. So today we're going to talk about the survival techniques and things that Sam did in My Side of the Mountain, which were things that my mother learned growing up. She grew up in a family of naturalists and scientists. Her father was an entomologist, and you would look at him and think maybe he was a grumpy old guy. I don't know, but he would take them out and he would point to a bush and ask them what it was, and if they didn't know, he'd ask them to taste it, and then they usually could tell whether it was a spice bush or something else. And he would just constantly teach them the plants and the animals. And at the beginning of the pocket guide, which is something that she and I came up with one day, I thought, wouldn't it be fun if, because Sam's always referring kind of to his diary, wouldn't it be fun if somebody went up into the Catskills and found Sam's diary with all the how-tos of how he did everything? And so that started the pocket guide. And just a little aside, my mother had had a stroke in 2005. We did the pocket guide in 2008. She had had a full-side stroke, right side, couldn't move her hand, but she was afraid that the illustrators they might pick for My Side for the pocket guide wouldn't know the plants and wouldn't know what to draw. So she began sketching the sketches that are in the book, and by the time we finished, she had most of the sketches were hers, so it helped her. And Katie's grabbing the little pointer from me. I'll tell you, the most hardest thing in the whole world is I think about those poor people on the news that have to look right at the camera and not move and not blink and not do anything. I'm not going to be able to do that, so I'm going to be looking around, and hopefully I won't make the cursor go all over the place, but sometimes I do. Okay, so at the beginning she writes Sam Gribley, and she names the different people that are Sam Gribley, but Sam Gribley is my father, taking me out in the fields to learn the flowers and the edible plants, and into the woods to know the animals. He made the outdoors fun and adventurous, and I was diverted from idleness into the busy drama of nature. Yeah, idleness was not a big favorite thing in our family. It didn't have a lot of idleness, but unless you were reading, then you could be idle. But he really did teach them so much, and plus then they, added to that themselves. So, uh-oh. All right. So I'll start with some examples of Sam's activities. This is from Rachel Matai's classes in Strong City, Kansas. And for 10 years, she has had a 5th grade curriculum. And it's a literature-based adventure curriculum that they read, they study, and it culminates in Sam Gribley Day, where the kids break up into different teams. And they do so many of the activities that Sam did in my side of the mountain. So here's a group, they made a structure. They made a shelter. This group is making a fire, which you'll see them later. They made solar ovens, which Sam didn't do, but that was one they added. They tried to cook eggs, both in a leaf and on the fire. Not sure how that went, but they exploded. So on page 9 says, I left New York in May. I had a penknife, a ball of cord, an axe, and $40. I also had some flint and steel. It's my side of the mountain, page 9. And here are 2 kids from Strong City, from Chase Elementary. We started our fire with flint and steel, like how Sam did it. And if any of you have tried to start a fire with flint and steel, it is not easy. But these kids did it. They managed to get it. They collected leaves, they got little sticks, and they got it going. And that was written by Ava W. at Chase County Elementary, Rachel's class. And then they made their own fish hooks, poles, and they caught fish. And we'll see my attempt at making a fish hook later. And it is a skill. And the kids did it, and they made their poles, and they caught their fish. There's proof. And if you want to know, if anybody's a teacher out there, if you want to know more about Sam Gribley Day, you can go to my mother's website, jeancraigheadgeorge.com, click on resource, and then scroll down. Or I have included a link to a Zoom that she did on this year's Sam Gribley Day at the end of the program. It's really incredible, and she's a great person. So I decided for this Zoom today, what I wanted to do was make a safe, edible, wild meal. So that, because it's not, just because something grows out in nature doesn't mean it's good for you. It can be not good for you at all. But I think these plants that we're using today are things that you can recognize easily, are available in many places. And so I immediately went to Nick Spiros, who's the museum's Natural History Society of Maryland's museum's wild edible plant walk leader. And he is incredible. He's a biologist. He knows every plant, and he'll tell you 6 ways to Sunday how to use each one, no matter what it is. And so we went for a walk. We went not far. We're in, suburban Baltimore, and we went up, and there was a crop of cattails off to the side of the road. Daylilies grew there too. Milkweed was not far away, and it was a couple of weeks ago, so the milkweed was still in blossom, and the dayflowers were blooming, and the cattails had gone past the point where we could use the pods from the blooms, but he used the stalks, and it just tastes exactly like hearts of palm. It's just delicious. So we went, and he nicely slogged ahead. Sometimes you have to kind of make a mess to do these things. I mean, it's not easy to get just cattails. They're often in swampy, muddy areas. But he went ahead and he got one of the cocktail flowers, and he peeled back the stalk, and that's what we use for the meal. Oh no. There. And he, once again, you can use every part. He cut a stalk of the milkweed. It's very sharp and very strong. It could be used for spearing a fish, or could be used, for many, many things. Often the roots are used. They're ground into a powder. They're kind of potato-like. And the cattail pollen, which you can get from a mature cattail, he shakes it off and he uses it for cooking fish and for other things. And they're just endless. He calls them nature's warehouse, both of these plants. You can, at all times of year, you can use young plants. You can do it. You find things in the fall. Pretty much any time of year, you can find some part of it to eat. So what we did, he led the way. What we did is he parboiled the blossoms before we started cooking. Added them to, now Sam didn't have an iron skillet, but he probably would have really liked one. And we used a Coleman stove because we are not in a place where building fires would be appreciated. So he added the blossoms. He kind of put a little oil in, stir fried them, added the stalks and the petals from the daylily. And this is my friend Amy, and she got the first bite. And I'll tell you, it was delicious, delicious. I mean, you could eat this anytime. It was very satisfying. It filled you up. It tasted wonderful. It was great. And so it's a good example of something that you can eat safely, and you can make on your own. So Nick has his rules, and he made it clear. So first of all, if in doubt, throw it out. Make sure you can identify the plants you are eating. If you don't know for sure what it is, don't eat it. Some plants are edible in the beginning of the season. Some, can be eaten all the way through. Some become quite toxic by the fall. So be careful that you know what you're eating. Also protect the wild plants, especially when digging up the tubers. If there are 10, take 2. That's kind of his rule. And check to see if any of the plants are endangered in your area. Know your edible plant seasons. Some are good in spring, as I said. Some might not be good for you in fall. There's something called pokeberry, which has beautiful berries in the fall. You cannot eat those, but in the early spring, you can eat the first shoots. But the berries are good for using as a dye, make a beautiful magenta dye, but don't eat them. And then know what part of the plant is good to eat. So do you eat the berries? Do you eat the stalk? Do you eat the roots? And some people have different reactions to different wild plants. So my brother reminded me that when we were young, Mom made up a pot of cattail tubers and made them into a mash, and we ate it. And both of us had itches all in our throats. It was like we had a allergic reaction to them. And I talked to Nick about that, and he says he's done this a lot. He's done this thousands of times. He says it's really rare, but there are people who are allergic to cattail roots. So any of these, even a safe plant like cattails or milkweed, any of these, you really have to be careful. Start with a little bite and see how you do with it, and then move on from there. And here's an example. So these two plants are easily mistaken. There's milkweed over here, and there's dogbane over here. Milkweed is great. Those are the blossoms that we ate. You can eat different things at different times all year round. Dogbane, ooh, dogbane is not good. It is not. I don't think it'll poison you, but it certainly will make you not feel well. You can tell the difference in the leaves if you look at them. The flowers are different, but you know, if you're not comparing them, if you don't know your plants well, if you're in the area, you might say, oh, you know, that's milkweed, let's try that. But so go with someone who really knows their stuff the first couple of times and get to know the plants. It's a great way to get to know the plants. He was telling me that one young man was going out with him and he was going over plant after plant after plant, and he saw the young man look sort of discouraged and overwhelmed, and he said, what's up? And he says, I'll never remember any of this. And he said, you know what? Start with one. Learn that one, add another. Learn that one. He says, that's the way I did it. I learned them one by one, and I got to know them inside and out. And I'm a biologist and a botanist. So there you go. Okay, so this is how not to catch a fish. So I have a friend, Marlo, who has a beautiful farm, and she knows how to do things really well. So I said, Marlo, let's make a fish hook with just the things that Sam had. Just a knife, a cord, and let's look around your farm and see what we can find. So first of all, we found some bones, and actually, I think this would have made a good hook. See this very thin bone here? We could have carved it up and worked on that and made a fish hook, but we didn't. We went on and we found locust tree thorns, and I thought that looks like a good hook. So we took them, we put a cord through them, we found some worms. I put the worms on the hook, and we put the hook in the water, and because of the cord and the weight of the hook, it floated. So that wasn't any good. So we had to take it out again, and we tied a piece of the bone onto there as a sinker. We put it back in, it went down, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited. So nothing seemed to be interested in my homemade, you know, hook. And I thought I did feel a little bump. Maybe something came and tried a taste, but I think not, because the whole worm was there when I pulled it up. And it was very, you know, sometimes it's hard. And there are a lot of fish in there. So then I found a safety pin. And I know it wasn't one of the things that Sam brought with him, but I figure if Sam found a safety pin, he would have used it. So attached the safety pin on the cord. I hooked a worm onto it. I tried it in the pond, nothing, zip. And so finally, and this is really hard to admit, I tried it in Marla's goldfish pond, just to see if the fish would be interested. And the fish came up at first and sort of circled it, and then they pulled way back. So I don't know what was going on with me that day. Maybe they didn't like, maybe they're bad worms. I don't know. But thankfully I didn't catch one of her goldfish. And if I had been Sam, as I said, we might have to have more stir fry for dinner that night. And then, of course, there's a young man, 12 years old, who comes weekly to her pond and catches fish. There are bass, and there are perch, and there are bluegills in this pond. So it can, you know, you can be successful. And, you know, just have to take a little breath and move on. But I think Mom included all these things, not only because of her own interest and her knowledge of how to survive, but also growing up and outside of New York City, in Chappaqua, New York. It was rural, but certainly not very, and I'd say suburban. And she would lure us into the woods with activities and learning the knots and how to make a line and how to make a compass. That was one of the fun. How to find north using the sun, depending on the time of day. I love doing things like that. And she would do that with kids who hadn't been in the woods much and who didn't have much knowledge. But it gave them a focus. And it helped them, as the young man who learned one plant by one plant by one plant. It helped them to sort of connect in a way and begin to look in ways that they didn't know how to do beforehand. And I was a librarian for a while, and I had a side door that opened up onto the playground. And one day I decided to take my class, we were doing ID books, I think, to take them outside. And this was kind of a semi-urban, suburban school. And kids these days don't spend a lot of time outside, but that was over my head. So I decided I'm taking them out. So we line up, we go out, and then they hit the outside and they went wild. They were running all over the place, and boys were grabbing sticks and oh yeah. So I realized, this is not exactly what I had hoped for. I lined them all up and brought them back in. But I think it takes kids a while to learn how to be outside and to see outside and to interact with even a yard or a woods in a different way than maybe they've been used to. So back to Rachel's class in Strong City, Kansas. The kids took a lot of the ideas home, and this young man carved his face on his walking stick. This one, a young lady braided twine for her fishing pole. This one made a boomerang. He did it, which is pretty cool. And this young man made a map. And I think in this day and age, when we have so much electronic guidance around us, making a map is an interesting project. And I would often, when the kids came into the library, I'd say, does anybody know where north is? Well, most of the time nobody did, and I had to even find it myself. But some of these more traditional activities are really interesting and teach the kids a lot. So I'm going to go through this, and then we're going to share some of the things that people sent in. The final Zoom is July 22nd. If you have a question or a passage you would like to share, you could send it to nhsm@marylandnature.org, not com, which I had last week, org, and put my side in the subject. Include your first name and your age if you'd like, and it has to be in by Monday at 3 p.m. so we can include it in the Zoom. And next week, I thought I'd also share some of the original manuscript of My Side of the Mountain. This is kept at Curlin Library, University of Minnesota, which is a research library. You can call and you can get all kinds of manuscripts from many different children's authors in the different stages as they went along. And it's fascinating. So we can talk about how she started it and things she added, things she left out, things you might add or leave out. And if you're interested in Rachel Mattai's Sam Gribley Day, the link is down here at the bottom of the page, or you can go to jeancraigheadgeorge.com and click on resources and scroll down. A couple of corrections from last week. The email for the museum is not a .com, it's a .org. In the last presentation, I mentioned that we had a weasel in 59. Actually, it was 55 or 56. So it was before My Side of the Mountain was written. And the reason that was interesting was because the weasel really was a basis for Baron Weasel in the book. And I mentioned just in passing so quickly the book Ice Whale. But it's a neat book, and it was based on my brother Craig's research on the bowhead whale. He and his partner discovered that bowheads can live over 200 years. They documented one that was 286 years old. Mom heard this, and she started this book that went generation after generation following this whale through hundreds of years. But she had had a stroke, and it was hard for her to do math, and some of the years got mixed up, and she passed away before it was published. So Craig, because it was his research, and I worked on it and finished it, and it was published in 2013, I think. So I just wanted to do a little background on that. And many thanks, as always, to the Natural History Society of Maryland, the Craighead House, and to my friend Marla Hollinsworth and Nick Spiros for helping me through Sam's activities. And now I think Brownwind can share some of the things that were sent in. I think somehow. Stop share. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
There we go.
you, Twig. That was great. And we will have time for questions and hopefully some answers from Twig after I do my little share here, because I have a whole bunch of questions bubbling in my head for Twig about this part of the book. But we asked if you wanted to try some things that Sam did, you could do so and share them. And if you didn't get a chance this week, you can do so for next week, or when we get together in person, not online, but on September, I can't remember what it is, September 7th?
6th or 7th, depending on weather.
7th. But we're gonna watch the movie together, but we can also bring in all of the things that you want to share as well, that you have made or to eat or whatever, I don't know. But I'm gonna share right now. We had a few people share some things that they did, and I'll ask them to come on and unmute.
Yeah, thank you for this.
So we have the Ani family. If you want to come on and kind of discuss what things that you shared here, this is your
That looks
bunch.
so cool.
Yeah, so I just realized that we had the book Acorn Pancakes, Dandelion Salad, and 38 other wild recipes by Jean Craighead George that we got when my kids were little. And I looked through it, and a lot of the things are not ripe now, or they're not in our area. Like there's a section on cactus, which we don't have in Baltimore. But there was a section on chicory. And so I decided to go out and forage for chicory. So on my table, you see a whole pile of chicory. And what I realized is you have to harvest a lot, because a lot of the plant is the stalks and the flowers, and the leaves are at the base, kind of in a rosette formation. So, I had to go through all this and take the leaves. And then I made this Mexican green spoon bread. The green comes from the wild chicory in it. And it actually turned out very delicious. And it's like a really hearty meal. So that's what I did.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah, I think, and these don't, in this book, it's not, you're not in a survival situation. She adds other things, because she began noticing that a lot of the restaurants in the area, fancy restaurants, were serving fiddlehead ferns and some of the things that Sam was eating. So she put that together and put out this book. It's a beautiful book, and I think that's a good point. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. You have to find it, forage it, bring it in, prepare it. It's not something that you're going to be able to whip up just quickly. So that's, I think, a good thing to keep in mind in terms of what it takes really to forage and live more out of the woods than the grocery store. But combining them is always nice.
It might take a lot of time, but it sure is a lot of fun to go out there and forage. I mean, there's nothing that's better than a berry off of a tree, off of a bush.
Right. And that's part of it too. I mean, just getting out there and interacting with everything that's out there, being together, making the recipe. That's all part of it that, is just a wonderful result of doing this work.
So I have a question for the Ani family. Did you know what chicory was before this, or did you have to go? How did you know where to go find chicory?
Okay, so I did know what it looked like, but I also realized I had to find it, and you have to be careful, like you're not going to go on private property. Like you can't go into someone's yard that they haven't mowed or something. And so and we have we have an interesting situation that we have a small farmette, but what I realized is we have sheep and they love to eat chicory, so it was not in our on our farm. But then I found that on the street there was an area where it's grass. There's the street, and then there's grass, and then there's the sidewalk, and then there's people's yards. So that grassy area really doesn't belong to anyone. And there was and no one hardly mows, so there was a lot of chicory. So I went along there and just cut it down and put it in a bag, and then came home and separated the leaves from the stalks and the flowers. You have to wash it really well too. That's the other thing, because the leaves are at the base, like by the dirt. So there was a lot of mud and dirt because of all the rain and stuff. So I washed it really well before I used it.
Nice. Well, you did a beautiful job. And are those dandelion leaves too and things in there? Or is that?
No, that they say that the chicory leaves at the base are often mistaken for dandelion leaves. They look very similar, but that's the chicory.
Okay.
And
Great.
she has beautiful illustrations. The illustrations in this cookbook are gorgeous, and they show the plant so that if you don't know what it looks like, you can look at the illustration as well.
Yeah, that's a beautiful book. I think it's out of print, but you can always find things on books or you know, secondhand book sites that you can pick it up.
All right, thank you so much. That looks delicious. We know we're going to dinner. We're going to your house for dinner.
Where do you live? Are you nearby?
So yes, we're Baltimore based, and then we have a small farmette in Carroll County.
Oh, great. Well, maybe you'll bring it to the movie. You don't have to, but okay.
All right, next up is Dave. David sent in some things that he made with some bamboo.
So hi, everybody. I'm Dave Pittenger. I'm Twig's husband. And just for full disclosure. Anyway, I looked at the book and decided I would try to find some bamboo, which is not that hard. But as the previous speaker said, I didn't want to cut it down in front of somebody's yard. So I found a spot up on York Road between Sparks Road and
Lower Glencoe.
And Lower Glencoe, yeah, where I could pull off. And I went over and cut down some stalks. I wasn't sure whether it had to be dried out, but this was all green. So I cut it down, dragged it all home. And you can see the tools I used to do this mayhem. Anyway, I never got to the part where you actually make the pan flute, but I did get to the part where you get the little sections, and you have to cut them off where the natural part here, the bottom of the stalk. And I tried, because the book talks about putting something over this part, like a penny or something. But I tried that and it didn't work. So I cut it down this way. Anyway, so I made these 3 sections, and there's a flat side, to at least the ones I cut down, and that seemed to be the best part for the flute. Anyway, that's not working. Well, let me try another one. That's gonna work. There you go. Let me try
Very
this one again. Better. Anyway, so I got this far, but didn't get to the part where I made it into the pan flute. Anyway, that's what I did. Oh, and by the way, one of the side benefits was getting something that I'm going to make into a nice walking stick.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah, that might work out better.
Well, we'll check back in with you, Dave, next week to see how far your pan flute has come as we go on this continue on this journey. So don't
There you go.
abandon the project. You have more
No.
time to work.
No, never.
All right, and last but not least, for today, the share is. Here we go. Does Christina want to come on and talk about the project, or Alex?
No. Oh, I guess I
Hi.
have to. Hello. Yes, so yesterday we Bronwyn went and cut some cattails and we weaved them on the dining room table and created a mat and trimmed it. We did use real scissors and probably things that Sam would not have had on hand, but it was very fibrous, and I mean, I could see as it dries, it would be a pretty substantial mat. You could use it for a number of things. Certainly make it bigger for cutting down or cutting back on the dirt that would be at the base of your tree, dugout tree. I don't know. As a rug. So anyway, but it was a lot of fun. And it actually, one of the things it did take a little time. It did take I don't know, 20 minutes for us to weave this together, but it was fun to do together. It was very manageable. I mean, it was kind of like the lattice of a pie. I'm like, oh, I want to make a pie. So there's all sorts of inspiration that comes from these projects. Yeah, it was the end result is shown. And then Alex was able to at least play with the cattail. I don't know that we ever got to the fruit. I think Bronwyn took her outside and showed her that you could pull that off and make a fluff for different dry needs. But anyway, that was a fun little exercise.
That's great. Well, good. That's good for you, Alex, for getting in there. That's great. Let's see you weaving. So I think we used to make these we call them sit-a-puns. And, you take them out when you were, eating outside or picnicking or Girl Scouts. We all made them like Girl Scouts to sit around in a circle and talk. But they dry beautifully, and you'll have it for a long time.
All right.
Questions?
Now, again, if you want to create something from the book or just nature in and of itself, inspired by, do that and send me the information. And you can also send me reflections or your favorite part of the books, also for sharing at next week. But right now we're going to open it up for Q&A with Twig. And I'm going to go first because the question is, when your mom was creating the book, had she eaten and done all of these things that she put in the book, so that she kind of field tested every little bit of everything that she put in there?
I believe she did. She had done all the things in the book, and she had us participate as well. The weirdest one was it wasn't in the book, but was like a worm pizza that we tried. We'd eat, the tubers, we'd bake things, we'd make things, we'd try fishing, I don't ever remember making the salt. That was a good point, but Yeah, she would involve us in a lot of her writing and the things that she did.
All right. If you want to raise your hand, I will call on you. Debbie, you have a question. Debbie, you're muted. Go ahead.
Just click the, yeah, the
I-
red.
I
button.
actually
Oh, there
didn't
you
have a question. Excuse me. I just had my hand up. So that was a mistake.
Right.
Okay.
But I did want to say that I long ago retired, but kept on coming to a school that I love, a wonderful virtually outdoor school. And I read those 3 books of My Side of the Mountain and On the Far Side and Frightful's Mountain to my kids again and again and again. And even if they've heard them before, they are spellbound. Those books are so incredible.
You, Debbie was my first babysitter when
I was all of 11 years old, I think.
I was 2, I think. So, do you remember any of the animals when we were there?
At Vassar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the owl.
Oh, the owl, the bubo, the great horned
Yeah.
owl.
Yeah.
It was out in front of the girls' dorm. So it was the first time that they had dorm parents. And my parents moved in. I had just been born. And we had a great horned owl that they put on a perch at the bottom of the steps to the dorm parent apartment that was downstairs. And I knew that I could sit on the 3rd step and I would be eye to eye with the great horned owl. And, you know, he would snap his beak and I'd snap mine, and he would open his eyes and I'd open mine. And then he'd turn his head, you know, he could turn his head a lot further than I could. But he was I felt like he was a friend. And sometimes I got to hold him, and he was so big, his talons would go all the way around my arm. Dad would let me hold him now and then.
Malachi has a question, Twig. Growing up, what was your favorite meal you and your family made out of wild plants?
Favorite meal out of wild plants? Trying to think. Some of the well, if you do it well, acorn pancakes and the flours that you can make from acorns is very good. But it requires a lot of washing, a lot of soaking and squeezing. And it takes a lot of time. You have to collect the acorns and grind them and soak them and squeeze it. And then you get to the acorn pancakes. But once you get there, they're great.
All right. Ani Family says, I noticed that your mom dedicated the 2nd book to you, Twig, saying you were the inspiration for it. Do you think you resembled Alice?
Oh, I wish I did. Well, interestingly enough, Mom wanted Sam to be a girl in the first book, but it was hard enough to get a book published about somebody running away and a kid running away and living in the Catskills on their own for a year. And at that time in 1958, she got it through, but it was going to be a boy. So it became Sam, and Sam was her favorite cousin, who shared a lot of these activities with her, and it was really her. And then, so I had that in the back of my mind, and when, she was thinking about doing a sequel, she began kind of putting things together, and I said, why don't you make it a girl? And she goes, well, how would I do that? And I said, well, there was Alice's sister, have her stay with him. And she really loved it. And so she came, she created Alice, and Alice had a pig. I loved Alice. Alice was great. They made that mill, all kinds of stuff. so that was really fun, and I thank her for dedicating that to me.
All right. Now you mentioned that your mom was an artist. Did she draw all of the pictures in the first book and in all of the books, or what was her relationship with the art?
She drew, she illustrated all her books through My Side of the Mountain. I'm trying to think, and a couple of the others. And then it became a choice, kind of, does she want to be an illustrator or an author? Because, to illustrate and write a book, of course, takes, a lot of time. And if you have another illustrator, then you can get it kind of a different look to the books. So she decided to stick with the writing and have other people illustrate it. But after she died, she would tell me, stuff is up in the attic, just throw it out. And she said, just, I don't want to bother you with it. And when we went up there, we found 700 illustrations. 700 beautiful illustrations and miles of letters and manuscripts and just details about publishing at that time, editors at that time, her books. And so, let's see, she died in 2012, and I am still working through all the material, kind of deciding where it should go and what to do with it. And one example is the diaries that I used last week. I have about at least 10, maybe 14 diaries. And they're written in very small handwriting, so there's a lot there to go through. But it's great stuff. It's really interesting stuff. Both about the time that she was writing and her process.
And I just lost my train of thought. Katie put that Twig's daughter still is following in the family footsteps, and Twig is following that, feeding her family chicken of the woods, which is a mushroom. So it continues on down the line.
That's right. Yeah, we would try things on them too. They love the chicken in the woods and the puffballs, and a young puffball, and they're pretty safe and easy. But mushrooms are tricky, so don't launch off first with the mushrooms unless you're really sure of what you're doing. As Nick Spiro said, you can eat all mushrooms once. So be careful. And that's what I'll share next week, because on the back of one of the pages of My Side of the Mountain, she wrote advice from a mushroom specialist at Vassar that she consulted when she was writing it. And basically his advice was, unless you know what you're doing, don't eat them. So,
and I think Sam echoes. I think Sam echoes that in the book. He doesn't just go and eat everything. He doesn't just go and eat everything. He's very picky and ate only the puffballs that he felt that. So Aaron asked, do you have any other animals right now other than a dog?
No, I have this cute dog that we rescued, Bean, the perfect dog. There you go. No, I don't right now. We after Mom died, I inherited Toka, her African gray parrot, that she had adopted when she was almost 80. So she had a very I think she thought she was going to live quite a long time. So and Toka was like 40 or 50 words. There were some great stories that went after he came down to our house. There was a period where flying squirrels were coming into our house, and the Toka would sit in her cage and she'd eat these little nutritious nut balls, and they all the seeds would go all over the place, and the flying squirrels were coming down the chimney and eating the seeds. Well, I caught a couple of them, and I took them into school because kids didn't even know they existed around Maryland, with the idea that I would let them go. And then we kept them for a couple of months. And then I was like, ooh, you know, I don't know how to let them go because I don't, you know, they're not in shape. They have to, you know, fly, you know, jump between trees and glide and do all this stuff. So where can I let them out? So I decided the best place was the barn, which had holes in the wood in the barn so they could get out. And I left the cage open and I put some food in it. And the first night I went back, they were still in there. And the second night I went back and they were gone. And I went back in the house and this terrible storm hit. I mean, it was blowing and sleeting and, you know, just freezing up. It was like Sam in his house. It was just terrible. And I kept thinking, oh, the poor flying squirrels are going to be, you know, they're not used to it. They haven't been out there all winter. What are they going to do? So I come down the next morning. I'm all sad. I get my coffee. Toka's in the other room. And she had learned the word squirrels. And she kept saying, squirrels, squirrels. And I kept saying, no, Toka, the squirrels are gone. I don't know where they are. They're probably in trouble. I'll have to go find them. And she's, squirrels, squirrels. So I take my coffee and I go into the other room and I look down in the seed tray. There were the squirrels. They had come back. And so they were doing all right. They did fine. So it was fun to have her. It was fun to have the squirrels. And then my husband worked at the aquarium. So he had like 10,000 animals, but there were lots of people to help take care of them and we could go visit them.
Awesome. All right, any other questions for Twig today? Otherwise, save them, write them down, because we have one more week. Actually, two. One more Zoom, and then we'll meet in person at the museum. And so, any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Twig, and thank you, everybody, for joining us for the second meeting of the Sam Gribley Fan Club. And we'll be meeting again next Tuesday, same time, same place. Remember to send me any pictures that you have or any reflections or anything that you want to share with the group as we continue on this journey of just a love fest for my side of the mountain love fest. So thank you, Twig. Thank you, everybody. Stay well, stay curious, stay outside. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.